Why should you print your photos? I think a better question to ask first is, why are you taking photos in the first place? For them to sit on your phone or hard drive for most of your life and maybe never be seen again? It's amazing that we have the option to take and store so many images digitally nowadays, but it makes it hard to remember sometimes that photos can be a physical object, a carefully crafted piece of art to be hung on your wall or admired like a painting. Most of us watching have the photography part down, but what about the physical choices we can make for our prints? Let's talk about it today. So you have a photo you want to display in a gallery, or maybe even in your home, which by the way is totally fine. I know some people feel weird about it, but I say it's totally fine. There are several methods to consider though. If you think you might want to start printing regularly, you can consider getting a printer for your home. I'm really looking forward to using this one today. It's the Canon Image ProGraph Pro 1100 and it's brand new. We'll talk about it a little bit more in detail later in the video. If you're having trouble deciding on what option might be best for you in terms of printers, feel free to talk to one of our experts either in the store or you can also use our live chat tool on our website. The other method would be to use a professional service that will print and even mount your image for you. There are plenty of services online and you might even find a studio in your area. I think it's always a good idea to establish a relationship with printing professionals as well because it can be a huge part of your artistic workflow, and having someone who knows your style and your preferences when it comes to printing can be a huge win. So let's talk about the specifics for each option, some pros and some cons. I think the biggest pro for printing yourself on your own printer, like this one, is that you have full control over the process and your turnaround time is super quick. You can print within a few minutes anytime you need to print. The con is the cost. If you're looking to print a ton, then it's definitely worth considering getting your own equipment. But if you're only printing every now and then, it might be a bit pricey and it may take up a good amount of space in your home. Now let's talk about which printer to use. There are several popular options for at-home printers that we have here at B&H, but we'll take a closer look at this huge printer today. It is the new Canon Image ProGraph Pro 1100, which is a true professional printer and can print borderless up to 17 inches wide. It produces really deep blacks and has an amazing color range because it uses 11 different pigment-based inks that are highly light resistant, so your images will be preserved long term. So let's talk about what you need to do with your image for best results when it comes to printing. Preferably you will have shot this on a high megapixel camera and have the raw file. You can go ahead and use your usual workflow to edit your image to your style. We'll make a few adjustments to enhance the photo for printing. Generally, you want to brighten your image a bit. You're looking at your image on a screen, which means it's illuminated. Having your image on paper means that your image will have less luminosity. Brightening your image helps make it look closer to how you see it on screen. With the same thought, consider raising your shadows a bit as well. Some people enjoy sharpening their images a bit as well to help the printer distinguish details. Your printer, as well as the paper you're using, will probably provide an ICC profile that you can use. These are meant to give you the perfect setting for the exact equipment you are using. When you export your image, make sure that you follow the printer's requirements and export the highest quality setting. The standard here is 300 dpi. There are a few other choices you have to make when it comes to printing, and the most important one is size. How large do you want to print your image? With a high megapixel camera, you can really blow up your image quite large, but you also need to consider in what setting your image will be shown. Sometimes a smaller print in a larger frame can actually draw special attention to it, while other times you might really want your audience to see all the details very clearly. Another choice to make when you're printing is whether or not you want to add a white border around your print. This is a personal choice and there really is no right or wrong way to do it. There are a ton of different photo papers, and once again, your preference is important, and experimenting with different styles is really the best way to figure out what you prefer. Generally, you can choose between a matte and a glossy paper. As a general rule of thumb, if you have bright, vibrant colors, you might want to get a glossy print as it will really draw out contrast and make your colors quite literally shine. Semi-gloss or satin is also a great idea for punchy colors or if you like a little less glare. For black and white images, or if you want to frame the photo in a glass frame, you should consider a matte finish. This can look super artistic and very premium, but it might hide some of the contrast in colors, which can actually be great for noisy images. Like I said, this really all depends on your personal preferences and your artistic vision. I personally really love using the Burrito paper, which is a style of paper that a lot of artists and photographers trust. This Hanemühle fine art burrito is a bright white cellulose-based paper and has a really beautiful sheen and texture, and it's actually quite heavy at 325 grams per square meter. A good idea, I think, is to stay consistent with your choice if you have more than one image. When you're making a gallery wall, for example, I think it looks best if you stick to one option. The biggest advantage when sending off your images to be printed at a printing studio is that you are handing this process off to somebody who's professional and who know what they're doing and can advise you on all the technical questions you may have. You can get professional results without having to spend hundreds on equipment, and you won't need to spend the time learning a whole new skill. The disadvantage is that if you want to print more often, it might get pricey and you'll be on somebody else's timeline. You should ask your fellow photographer friends if they've had any good experiences with any of the printers online, or you can also search for options near you. If you can, I think it's a great idea to find a place that's local to you and go there in person. They might be able to show you samples and give you a personal recommendation for exactly the type of print that you want. If you don't have anyone nearby, definitely look online. There are plenty of professional printing services that will send you your prints securely. Now let's talk about preparing your print for sending it to a lab. It's very similar to when you're printing at home, but make sure you follow your studio's instructions. They usually provide pretty detailed requirements, and they also might edit your image a bit to fit their equipment to make sure that you get the most out of your print. You can also be in conversation with them about how you process your image and ask them if they have any edits. So you've got your print, but what do you do with it now? The question of how to present your images can be difficult and expensive, especially if you want to show more than one image. A beautiful wooden frame with high quality glass can get expensive and might not always be the right choice. But luckily, there are other options. Something that I learned when I was exhibiting my work at art school is foam mounting. This can be a professional looking way to show your work, and I also personally love the minimalist look of it, and you can really see the texture of the paper. Lots of printing studios offer this option, but you can also do this yourself. Choose a sturdy and thick foam board. You can usually get those at a craft or art supply store. Carefully cut the board to the dimensions of your image. Use a scalpel or a fresh box cutter for this. You should use a metal edge ruler and go very carefully in many light strokes to get a clean edge. Remember that the edge will be visible, so it's really worth putting extra effort to make this look as clean as possible. You can get a self-adhesive board, but you can also use spray adhesive to carefully glue your image onto the foam boards. This can be a really cost-effective, doable, and beautiful way to showcase your images, and very flexible when it comes to sizes. If you do want to use a classic frame, think about the options you have here. Take a good look at your image and decide, do you want a dark frame or a monochrome white frame or a classic wooden frame? Framing is a huge part of the finished artwork, and you can really use it to enhance your photography. You can put a very small print in a large frame and it will draw the viewer's attention almost like a whisper does. For a larger print, a classic 1 to 2 inch space might be the best choice. The space around your image and your frame is decided by a mat board. It doesn't have to be symmetrical. There are several common styles you can consider, but lots of frames also come with a mat board that you can definitely just use. If you'd like extra help with that, there are professionals offering framing services, and it can definitely be worth it if you want to offer professionally framed photography. Now let's talk about a printing process that has become pretty popular over the last few years, just because of how vibrant and brilliant the colors look. Metal or aluminum prints. There are several different names for this style of printing, but in general, it's a process that uses heat to infuse archival pigment inks on a metal sheet that is then adhered to a sturdy, often wooden or foam backing. This means that the colors are super vibrant and the print has a ton of luminosity because of the metal. This is the most durable type of print you can have. It won't fade over time, and you can even hang it outdoors. It's also scratch resistant, and you can hang it on your wall without any additional framing, which means that all of the attention is on your photograph. So how you decide to print your images is a complicated decision that involves cost, personal preference, and your artistic vision. And there really is no right or wrong way to do it, and it really is best to experiment with different options over time. It might also help to see a photo exhibit in person and pay special attention to framing and display choices. If you need more technical help, you can always chat with our experts either in store or online. Personally, I think it's always worth printing your photographs, and I think it can be a super fun way to share your love for photography with others. What other questions do you have about printing? Let me know in the comments below.